All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Capitalize on Retirement. Today, we're going to talk about retirement and could your money last as long as you do? I mean, this is built on one of the things that we talk about all the time. I think the statistic is 59 or 60% of Americans are afraid of running out of money.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, retirement could last 30 years, so
Yeah.
do you know if your money will last as long as you do? And, that's obviously something that we help the families that we work with every day, but I think we take it for granted because a lot of people are concerned about it.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, our grandparents, most of the families that we serve, their parents, their retirement looked a lot different, right? We say it all the time. When they retired, they kind of tightened the belt buckle. They lived on a fixed income. They had Social Security and pensions. They relied very little on their retirement savings. And to be honest with you, the life expectancy wasn't as long.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and I mean, I think the people get it wrong all the time where, and you know this, but people will say, how much do I need to save for retirement? And that's great, but I think you need to start with how much income do I need, right?
Oh, yeah.
You need to start with how much income do I need to satisfy my lifestyle?
Yep.
And then you can kind of back into the number, right? Because if you know how much income you need, increasing with inflation, because we have to make sure we keep pace with inflation, then you could figure out how much money do I actually need saved. And it's not necessarily about having the highest dollar value for some people. It's kind of just having the financial freedom to be able to retire and not have to work anymore.
Absolutely. And the more guaranteed income you have, the more that helps. So like your Social Security, your pension income, all that is great. But I think, like you said, it's not so much about that number. It's about how much do I need? And I think that need question is, we talk about all the time. When you're retired, every day is a Saturday.
Yeah.
And you're likely going to spend a little more money in retirement. And that's okay.
Yeah.
You kind of just got to account for that, right?
I know I spend more money on Saturdays.
Me too, without a doubt. And I think the big thing here is longevity, right? Well, your money lasts as long as you do. And I think most people don't realize, because you've worked the past 30, 40 years, but your retirement could be 25, 30, 35 years.
Yeah.
So that's a long time without a physical paycheck, and the money that you've saved has to create that. So that's a big deal.
Yeah, and retirement has changed, right? When maybe the older generation, when they retired, they had 10 to 15 years, maybe 20 years in retirement if they were lucky.
Yeah.
Whereas today's retiree, I mean, they're living into their late 80s, 90s, so people are living a lot longer, which is fantastic, but we just have to make sure that the money lasts as long as we do.
Yeah, and that's a good thing, right? But if you're married, you have to make sure the money will last for the rest of both of your lives, right?
Right.
And I think there's I'm throwing statistics out there, but I think there's a 50% chance that if we're married, one of us will live to age 92. So again, that's a long time.
Yeah.
Without an actual paycheck. So we're creating that, and that's a good thing. It's just you have to have a plan for that.
Yeah. Yeah. So we want to make sure that we have paychecks coming in retirement. And when we do retire, we have to create those paychecks for ourselves. And there's a lot of different things that you could do with that, but having that income plan is very important.
And that's the foundation of retirement, right? Like we talk a lot about tax planning and we talk about estate planning, and those are all very important. But I think the foundation of your retirement is having an income plan, right?
Is my money going to last forever?
Is my money going to last? Because everything else we do after that is awesome, but that's the foundation, right? If I'm building a house, I got to dig the hole. I got to put the foundation in before I put the roof on.
So let's talk about why this matters for younger investors.
Yeah.
Because for our retirees, I think, they are at a good point. And, we're building income plans and they're kind of in a good spot. But let's talk about why this matters for younger investors and, some of the things that maybe they should be thinking at this point in their life.
Yeah. I mean, the baby boomers have done a great job. But for younger investors, I think the biggest force is compounding interest.
Yeah.
And I know we have some numbers here in front of us. And I think the main gist is starting early is huge.
Yeah. Yeah, it's huge. I mean,
you want to run through the numbers there?
Yeah, I'll run through them. So, I just want to talk about.
I only have you run through the numbers, so if compliance.
Yeah, right. They'll yell at me.
Yeah.
So let's talk about starting early, right? The biggest thing for some of our younger investors is starting early. Everybody hears that, but let's talk about why it's so important to start early. And before I run through the numbers, how many times a day do you hear, when is the best time for me to put money in the market?
Oh, especially, things are volatile right now, and adding money in is a great thing, but we don't know when the best time is. We know just having it in there is the best thing.
Yeah, and I say it all the time. When you have the money, that's the best time to put it in, especially if you have a long time horizon.
Yep.
The longer you have to let your money grow and compound, the more it should be worth down the road.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest things for people kind of on their accumulation phase, as we call it, right? Getting started in retirement. I think when you have the money, put it in. And we had Paul on, a few episodes ago, and pay yourself first.
Pay yourself first. Yeah.
Make sure you pay yourself first. Treat it like a bill. Treat it like your mortgage or your car payment or utility bills, right? Pay yourself first. Think of it as a bill.
Right. Both investors investing the exact same amount of money, huge difference. It's compound interest. It's the years that you have to let your money grow and compound over time. So I think that's the biggest thing, because if you're young and you want to retire one day, or you want the financial freedom to not have to work, well, you want to start right away.
I couldn't agree more, right? And that's why everybody saves money, so they can enjoy their retirement.
Yeah. So let's talk about the challenge for retirees, because I think if you're gonna live 30 years of retirement, you're gonna have some challenges, and we want to make sure that we can, tolerate some of those obstacles.
Yeah. So one of the big challenges is, one, when we talked about this, your income, that money that you've saved that we're going to turn into a paycheck, it's going to have to last decades, 20, 25, 30, 35 years, right? So it's got to last a long time. I think the other big thing is inflation.
Yeah.
Inflation erodes purchasing power.
Yeah.
So we have to make sure that we are keeping pace with inflation throughout our retirement, because if I want $7,000 a month today, well, in 10 years, I'm probably going to need $8,000 or $8,500.
Yeah.
Right. So I have to make sure that my portfolio is keeping pace with inflation. One of the other big ones is healthcare.
Healthcare, yeah, definitely.
The older we get, the more money we're going to spend on healthcare in the form of premiums and deductibles and copays and prescriptions. And one of the big ones is long-term care.
Yeah. I think that's one of the more underserved areas when it comes to people talking about retirement planning. I mean, Medicare is pretty favorable. I mean, depending on your income and how much you're paying, Medicare is a pretty good benefit.
Yeah.
But Medicare doesn't cover extended stay or long-term care.
Yep.
So you could be spending $10,000, $12,000 a month on long-term care expenses, which if you're not factoring that in, I mean, it could throw your whole plan off.
Well, and if you're married and that's the cost, what's that do to your surviving spouse?
Exactly. A lot of people say, well, I'm okay spending my assets down. They don't really care as much about passing money on. But if you're married, you don't want to spend all your assets down so that the surviving spouse doesn't have anything to live on.
That creates a lot of problems. And again, there's a lot of planning involved in there. And I think the other one, and we talk about this often, market volatility matters when you're withdrawing money. The same thing that got us, that made us so successful saving by putting money in every single month for 40 years, right? And letting that compound. Well, when we're in retirement, we're doing the exact opposite of that. A lot of people have heard the term dollar cost averaging. And dollar cost averaging is buying into the market every single month, whether it's high or low. And that does work because you're kind of driving your average cost down. Well, the problem is when we're in retirement, we are doing the exact opposite of that. We are taking money out of our account and reverse dollar cost averaging. So that creates problems if the market isn't cooperating. And I don't know if you have your crystal ball. I left mine at home, but we don't know what the market's going to look like.
Right. Yeah, your biggest risk in retirement is volatility.
Oh, yeah.
Market goes down like another 2008 were to happen. If that happens, well, the market was down almost 50% at one point. So are you going to feel comfortable knowing that my portfolio just got cut in half and I'm still withdrawing money out of my investments? Right? So it might not recover at that point.
It leaves a pin in our stomach when that happens. And it also it makes us make emotional decisions, especially without having a plan in place. So like for retirees, the challenge isn't necessarily building wealth anymore. They've already accumulated their wealth. It's making sure the wealth that you've built lasts the rest of your life.
Yeah. And you kind of mentioned this inflation, right? Inflation over 30 years, I just wanted to see what a 3% inflation rate would be. So if I need a $50,000 income today to satisfy my lifestyle, in 30 years, I'm going to need $121,000. So that means that I got to keep increasing my cost of living every year, and I got to increase my income, right? So can your portfolio sustain that increase in income for all those years?
That's a big difference.
Yeah.
And that's why you have to have, you can't put all the money under the mattress.
Right.
Right? Because then you definitely can't do that. That's a big deal. And a lot of people miss that. I think the other one, retirement happens in phases. This is one of my favorite things. And we've been doing this for a while, and we hear this every day.
Yeah.
Right. So retirement's going to go in phases, and we'll explain each of them. But the first phase, when you enter into retirement, you've been working for all these years, and when you're done, you want to go do things.
Yeah.
And we kind of call that the go-go years.
Yeah.
And we hear it all the time when we're going through concerns and goals with the families that we work with. And we'll ask them, hey, what do you want to do? Well, hey, I want to travel.
Yeah.
Or hey, my children and grandchildren don't live here. I want to go see them. I might buy a house closer to them. Like, we call that the go-go years, because when you're just new in the retirement, you're going to want to go on that trip that you've waited for. You're going to go to Home Depot on a Wednesday and buy things and do things to the house that you've been kind of putting off. So you're going to spend a little bit more money in the early years of retirement.
Yep.
And that's okay.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in the go-go years, what we talk about is your income might actually go up.
Yeah.
For those first maybe 10 years of retirement. Well, the next 10 years, we call them the slow go years. So that's when you kind of stabilize, your lifestyle stabilizes. You're still spending, and you're still traveling, but maybe your travel goes down a little bit. Yep. Maybe you're kind of staying more local. So it's not that income goes way down, but you're just not doing as much.
Yeah, I mean, you're getting a little bit older.
Right.
You're not doing all the things. You kind of do that in the first 10 years, right? We're kind of going and going, and then we enter that slow go where you're just not spending as much.
Right.
You're not as active, right? We're still doing a lot, but just not as much. You might not want to travel anymore. You kind of got that out from under you. And then once we get through that phase over those 10 years, we kind of enter into that no-go years.
Yeah.
And that's where we're not able to do a lot of these things anymore, but because our mobility changes.
Yeah.
But healthcare expenses increase at that point.
Yeah. So that's where, typically, like you said, that's where those long-term care expenses come into play. And we're not traveling as much. So that's why we call that the no-go years.
Yeah. So you kind of have bigger spending on the front end, spending kind of moderates in the middle. And if we don't have a plan, it definitely increases.
Yeah.
And it could be significant on the back end. I mean, nobody knows that, but I think the concept here is retirement's going to happen in phases, right? It's not like it's just going to be one flat number and that's going to be it forever. And you have to understand how that's going to work and have a plan for that.
And I think in those go-go years, those first 10 years, I think people don't enjoy it as much as they should because they're so worried about spending too much money in those years. Those are the years where they should be spending money and traveling and having as much fun as they can. So just having a plan for even that is so important.
I couldn't agree more. We have so many people who come into our office for the first time and they want to retire, and we'll kind of build a plan. It's like, hey, you could have retired 2 years ago.
Right. Why are you still working? You don't really love your job.
Yeah. It's just not understanding how it's going to work and not being able to kind of quantify the math.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Yeah. So key planning strategies, I think, first is income. We talked about that. An income plan is the most important part of your retirement. Is my money going to last forever? How do I maximize things like Social Security and pensions and my retirement withdrawals? The next one is just going to be your investment piece.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you're not taking too much risk, and you want to make sure that you're invested appropriately for that stage of your life.
Yeah, and that's a tricky part, right? Because you don't want to take too much risk, but you also have to keep pace with inflation. Right. So that means
it's a balancing act.
Yeah, it's a balancing act. And having different pieces of the pie cut up, right? We call it safety income growth. So we have some money that is safe, reliable, it's accessible. Then we have some money geared toward income, right? So we know our income will be reliable. And then we have money geared toward growth that is going to be our inflation protection, our legacy money, kind of our fun money.
And we can even go back to those 3 phases of life, the go-go years, slow go, and no-go. Well, in those go-go years, that's where you have the most risk, because you're spending a lot of money in those years typically.
Yeah.
So you might not want to take a ton of risk in those years, but as you get into the slow go and no go years, maybe you can take a little bit more risk.
Yep.
So everybody thinks your portfolio should get more conservative the older you get. Sometimes it can actually get more aggressive because it needs to be very conservative when you first retire.
We talk about that all the time. We did a podcast on this at Retirement Red Zone, right? The first couple years of your retirement are the most critical to success or failure. The older you get, unfortunately, our life expectancy is coming down, so we can actually take on more risk the older we get. It's kind of, people say the rule of 100, right? 100 minus my age is my risk. I disagree with that concept wholeheartedly.
Yeah. It's just very general.
It's very general, yeah.
We hate general terms in this industry.
Yeah, we don't do well with that.
So I guess the big takeaway, especially for retirees, you have to understand that there are typically 3 phases, and you really want to make sure that those first 10 years, 15 years, you're really enjoying it as much as you can. And for the younger generation, I think it's very important that you have a plan in place. How much income do I actually need to satisfy my lifestyle? Because if you're just saving without a plan and you have nothing, no target to hit, how do you know if you're on pace? How do you know if you're doing the right thing?
Oh, couldn't agree more. I think for younger investors, the biggest advantage you have is time. Time is on your side. Make sure we're taking advantage of that. And living longer, it's one of the greatest achievements of our modern society, but it does make retirement planning a little more complicated.
Yeah, so I think, it's not just about building wealth. It's about being able to live the retirement that you want. And if you want to stop working, you can, because you actually have a plan in place. Or if you want to keep working, that's great as well.
Yep.
Right? But at least you have those options.
And enjoy it. Enjoy it with a peace of mind.
Right.
So anything you want to add before we wrap it up?
I think we're good.
All right. Well, guys, we appreciate it. If you want to learn more about us, feel free to visit our website, www.capitawainvestments.com, and join us for our next episode. We love doing this, so thank you.